Welcome back to SportsLine here on News Channel 5 Plus. The Nashville Predators dropping Game 1 of their first-round Western Conference playoff series to the Colorado Avalanche last night in Denver. 7-2 the final. Colorado got off to a 6-0 start. And it was just not the way you want to start a series if you're the Nashville Predators. They're down 0-1. Game 2 comes up tomorrow night in Denver. Of course, games 3 and 4 will be here in Nashville Saturday afternoon and then Monday evening. To help us break it all down, we bring in our buddy Robby Stanley from 102.5 The Game. Of course, a longtime Preds beat writer for NHL.com. Robby, great to have you on with us again, man. Welcome back to the show.
JB, I appreciate you as always. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, buddy. All right, what do we make of last night? I mean, it was over before it started. You know, we all know the deal. UC Saros is injured. David Rittich has been the #2 goaltender all year. He got the opportunity to start last night, and it was an absolute disaster. It wasn't all his fault. The Preds did not play well in front of him, but, you know, you look up and it's 5-0 after 1. I mean, what were you thinking watching that last night?
It was crazy, JB. I mean, the game was really over before it began almost, it felt like last night. You're down 5-0 in the first period. You're basically just playing out the string the rest of the game there. And, you know, Duchesne scored on the power play, scored another one on a stretch pass later in the game. But there was never a second in that game where the Predators were threatening to the Avalanche. So it's a rough start. I mean, the good news is, no matter if you lose 3-2 or 7-2, it's one game, and you're down 1-0 anyway, and you can reset. But goodness, did the Predators come out and they struggled last night. JB, I think the most disappointing thing, I mean, we know this. They're heavy underdogs heading into this series, and almost nobody is giving the Predators a chance to win this series. But I did not expect them to come out last night and just look totally disinterested at times. And I'm not saying that that's the mindset that they took, but they just looked like they were 2 steps slow all night long. They weren't engaged in the battle, and I did not expect that from this Predators team. That was very disappointing to me, and they're going to obviously have to come out with a much stronger focus level tomorrow night in Denver.
So what did you make of Rittich? I mean, was it how much of it was him? How much of it was the guys not playing well in front of him?
Well, the guys in front of him certainly didn't play well, and you know, like I said, Colorado had the puck. You take a penalty 2 minutes and 8 seconds into the game, which unfortunately for them has become a massive trend as of late of going to the box early in games and then finding themselves down. But the bottom line is, I mean, he had a .615 save percentage in the first period. That's not anywhere close to NHL quality numbers. And, you know, we can dive into some fancy stats. And Adam Vingan came out with this today, and you know, the expected goals are a big stat in today's world.
Right.
And I think the expected goals were .087 for David Rittich, and he gave up 5. So that kind of tells you right there it wasn't great. I mean, you know, there was a debacle on the power play where Ekholm and Tomasino got mixed up. He made the original save on that play, and the second one ends up in the back of his net. There's no question that the team was horrible in front of him last night, but Dave Rittich, I'd be shocked at this point if they go back with him in Game 2. It's just not been very good from him all season long, and last night kind of encapsulated that.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question because, you know, I guess if you're looking for a positive for the Predators, right, after Connor Ingram came in, it was a 2-2 hockey game. He let in 2, and Duchesne scored 2. So from that standpoint, it's an even hockey game, and who knows what happens from there. I mean, the expectation would seem to be that Connor Ingram will start tomorrow night in goal. What do you think?
I think you almost have to go that way, and I wondered if they would go that way heading into the series. You know, David Rittich, as I said, his numbers are not great. And the other part of this, Connor Ingram's been playing all year. Now, albeit he's been playing at the American Hockey League level, and that's not the same as going up against the Colorado Avalanche. I fully recognize that.
Right.
But David Rittich has had very, very limited playing time this year. So I wondered heading into the series, with the amount of playing time that Connor Ingram has seen this year, would that be something that they try out? I think you'll see that tomorrow in Game 2. I thought he played pretty well for the most part yesterday. I mean, he gave up 2 goals. One of them was an absolute laser from Nathan McKinnon, and the other one, Mark Borowiecki, his teammate, kicked into his own net. So there's not much you can do about that. I thought Ingram played pretty well, and I would be shocked if he's not the starter coming up tomorrow in Game 2.
You know, you mentioned Colorado. They're so good. They're so skilled. It kind of feels like the Predators really need to kind of muck it up a little bit and just be physical and try to get some, a couple of dirty, greasy goals here and there and hope that who's ever in net, assuming it's Connor Ingram, can just stand on his head. I mean, listen, that could very well happen tomorrow. Next thing you know, the Preds are heading home with the series tied 1-1 with the next 2 games at Bridgestone Arena. And we all know, we were there in 2017 when that place was absolutely rocking. Those players get an absolute charge out of playing playoff games at Bridgestone. So, it doesn't look good for the Preds right now. But if they can somehow pull this caper off and get out of there with an ugly win tomorrow night, hey, you never know, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs, and we see this every year. Some weird stuff happens in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And like you said, JB, you win tomorrow, and as bad as Game 1 was, you've stolen home ice away in the series, and you're coming back home with a chance, if you win both home games, to be up 3-1 in the series. Now, I know that there could be people listening to this right now and watching this, and they're laughing at that based on what we saw last night. But I always tell people, it's so easy to overreact to Game 1 of the playoffs. And I'm not trying to compare, the Predators to the Tampa Bay Lightning or anything, but I couldn't believe the other day when Toronto just destroyed Tampa Bay, how many people were just burying the Lightning. And you look down right now, they're winning 3-1 right now after 2 periods against Toronto. I think it's very easy to overreact after 1 game. Now, Colorado's the better team. I don't think there's any question about that. But if you're the Predators, you've got to find a way to make their life difficult. They made it way too easy on Colorado the other day. And Colorado's better. Colorado, I think, is going to win this series.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the Predators have to make it easy for them. And they made it way too easy the other day. I don't think that'll be the case tomorrow. I think you'll see a better Predators team. I think you'll see a more focused Predators team. And I think even if they don't win the game, you'll see a much more competitive Predators team tomorrow. If you don't, then you got real problems as you move forward.
Yeah, you and I were talking before we came on the air. Colorado just has that look in its eye. I know there's a lot of pressure on them. They've been knocking on the door for a while, can't seem to get out of the second round. We saw the same thing with the Washington Capitals, up until a couple years ago when they finally broke through and won the Stanley Cup and then let Barry Trotz walk out the door, which I still don't understand. But, they're kind of that team, right? All the skill in the world. And trust me, I was there for a lot of those years in Pittsburgh where they could not get past the Penguins no matter what. They finally break through, and it feels like, this looks like a Colorado Avalanche team on a mission. We know how talented they are. We know how talented they've been. But, it just feels like that, they've got that determination, that look in their eye that this is going to be our year, that we at least win the West and get to the Cup final.
It really does feel like that. And look, they don't really have a weakness. I mean, they're loaded offensively, not only with high-end talent, but they've got great depth as well. And then you look at their defense, their defense core. You got Cale Makar, Sam Girard, Bowen Byram. You've got, Eric Johnson, who's been there for a long time. I mean, they're just loaded really from top to bottom. And Darcy Kemper, their goaltender, for the most part, even though he closed out the season a little rough, he's played well all season long. So there's not really a weakness for this Avalanche team. The one thing that I kind of wondered about heading into this series, and I still believe this to a certain degree, I mean, there's no pressure on the Predators in this series. Nobody's picking them to win. If you can hang around and you can get this thing to a Game 6 or a Game 7, then I think the pressure starts to shift towards Colorado because they're the ones with the expectations. They're the one who have been really good in the regular season the last few years and don't quite have the playoff success to show for it. But the problem is, JB, you got to get it there. Like you got to get that series extended. And right now, the Predators have their work cut out for them, especially if Saros isn't back for games 3 or 4. And we'll see what happens on that front.
Yeah, I know he was skating today after practice on his own, so we'll see what his health situation is like. And Robby, when you think about all this, this all started for the Preds when they blew that 4-goal lead in the regular season finale at Arizona. All they needed was 1 point, and they would have been the wild card 1 team, and playing the Calgary Flames. Now they're no picnic either, but boy, that was a huge disappointment for them to blow that game to an Arizona team that was, those guys had plane reservations and, and golf tee time set up for the next couple of days, and they allow those guys to come back, and now they're sitting here having to, without their top goaltender, try to figure out a way to beat the best team in the West.
was a massive, massive disappointment, and you're up 4-0 in that game. I mean, you're up 4-0 in the first period against the worst team in hockey, and all you've got to do is get the game to overtime, and you're taking on Calgary. And not only do you lose the game, but you lose it in regulation, and you don't get the point. And like you said, I mean, Calgary's no picnic either. Like, I would still have picked the Predators to lose that series as well. But I certainly think they had a better shot to take down Calgary than they do Colorado. I think Calgary plays the game basically the same way the Predators play the game. It's tough, it's physical. It would have been a heck of a series. I mean, the home finale for the Predators against Calgary was one of the most entertaining hockey games I've ever been to in my entire life. So I was really pulling for a Preds-Flames series, but it wasn't to be. And I think the Preds, by the time they get through the end of this series, they may be looking back at that Arizona game and wondering what could have been, because that was a huge blown opportunity right in front of them.
Robby Stanley is our guest from 102.5 The Game. Of course, he's on with our other buddy, Joe Rexrode, every weekday morning from 6 to 10. Robby, did you know I do a sports talk radio show in the mornings here locally? I don't know if you were aware of that.
You do a very good sports talk radio show in the mornings.
Well, I don't know about all that. But in addition to the Preds, of course, you were the longtime beat writer for the Preds for NHL.com, but you also cover everything going on here locally and nationally in sports. And you and I were talking off air about the Titans as well. We just had Jim Wyatt on from TitansOnline.com. Well, this has been a crazy offseason for the Titans. So much has happened since they lost that divisional playoff game to the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, A.J. Brown is disgruntled. He gets traded. And Ryan Tannehill's kind of, you know, somewhat perplexing comments yesterday saying he's not, you know, it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis. I mean, usually you don't see the Titans have this kind of offseason, right? That's reserved for teams like the Cleveland Browns or, you know, the Dallas Cowboys, or lately, unfortunately, my team, the New York Giants. What do you make of what's going on right now, the vibe with the Tennessee Titans as we continue through the offseason here?
Well, it's been a crazy offseason. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And now, you know, with A.J. gone, you've got Traylon Burks coming in. You start to look around the AFC South, and with Matt Ryan going to Indy, I know it feels like the Colts are supposedly off-season champions every year for the last few years, and I still don't know if I'm a huge believer in Matt Ryan to the Colts. But I do look at the Titans' offense right now, and you don't have A.J. Brown. You know, we'll see about Traylon Burks. I really liked him in college, but I think you're asking a lot of Traylon Burks to come in and replicate A.J. Brown's production. So what's this offense going to look like? Is Derrick Henry going to get back to being Derrick Henry? Because if he is, I still think the Titans can be a really good team. I mean, this defense should be loaded on paper. So I still like a lot of what the team brings to the table, but, man, JB, this Tannehill thing is going to be interesting, because now that they've drafted Malik Willis, I think it was already going to be rough for him anyway, but I'm interested to see when that first mistake comes and he throws an interception in Nissan Stadium for the first time, and now you have Malik Willis that's been drafted. It's probably not going to go well for Tannehill in terms of the fan reaction, and I wonder how he handles that as he moves forward here.
Real quick before we get you out of here, what was your reaction to the A.J. Brown trade?
I was stunned. You know, we heard the rumblings around, and obviously the wide receiver market is just gone nuts this offseason, but I was stunned that they did it as quickly as they did. I thought this could be something that drags on and maybe gets to training camp, but ultimately, you know, both sides kind of come together for a deal. But it told me that John Robinson and the Titans, they weren't messing around. They came to the conclusion that they didn't think a deal would be done, and they wasted no time getting some draft capital back for it. So I was stunned, and that's a pretty bold move for John Robinson. If A.J. goes to Philly and tears it up, that one's going to be tough to overcome with Titans fans, I think.
No question. We'll see what happens there. And, of course, we'll see what happens tomorrow night in Game 2 between the Predators and the Colorado Avalanche. Robby, as always, we appreciate the time, my man. Have a wonderful evening.
JB, you're the best. Appreciate you, bud.
Thanks, man. There he goes. Robby Stanley from 102.5 The Game. Again, you can catch him every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Joe Rexrode. Great show there in the morning. And, you know, you can catch a couple hours of his show, and then you can tune over to my show on 95.9 WNSR Sports Radio with Greg Pogue. We're on every morning from 9 to 11. We hope you check us out as well. When we come back, we're going to hear from the man that everybody's talking about with the Titans, Malik Willis, the quarterback of the future. Maybe. Stay with us here on SportsLine.